Guest, Chef Madea Allen. Give her a welcome. So I've been watching her work over the years. She's a plant-based chef, all into organic. She's the organic soul chef, and I'll let you share your story. But I saw her a couple of years ago on the show, the Food Guys Grocery Games on the Food Network. And I was impressed because if you've ever seen that show, Guys Grocery Games, you have just a few minutes to go and grab a bunch of groceries and then whip up something. And how long do you have to whip it up?
Less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, with not knowing what you were going to make from the beginning.
I know what the challenge was.
Yeah, so I was impressed that she whipped up a really great kale, apple, mustard salad, and it was really good. So I was impressed with that. But I enjoy the work she does because we're in line with not just making food taste good, but making it nourishing and healthy too. And those things do go together. They're not mutually exclusive, right? They go together very well, and that's why we're here to show you how to do that. So we're going to do a couple of demonstrations, and for those online, you probably already have the recipes in your inbox. The rest of you, they'll be there when you get home, so don't worry about writing anything down because it's all there for you. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you so much. I am Madea Allen. I am a teacher, I'm a way shower, and a facilitator. So what I do is I facilitate my clients into their highest state of being through my full spectrum health practice, which includes holistic culinary nutrition, meditation, soul integration facilitation, sacred movement, Reiki healing energy, and other sustainable lifestyle practices. So if you want to learn more about me and my business, you can visit organicsoulchef.com.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a lot of questions. You said a lot of stuff right there.
Yes, I did. Speaks to my journey.
Yeah, but it's all good stuff, and it's all holistic. I believe in pulling everything together because we have to heal our bodies, but we have to heal our soul and our spirit too. Because a lot of times we carry around a lot of emotion and a lot of trauma and things that have happened throughout our life from childhood that never really got expressed, and that can lead to illness too. And I know part of my healing journey, for those who don't know, I'm familiar with most of you guys, but those who don't know, I got into this field because I was healing myself from cancer. I had thyroid cancer in 2007, decided to try all natural methods instead of traditional surgery and radiation and all of that. Researched, found out about plant-based diets, whole food plant-based diets, switched to that, and added things like she just said, meditation, visualization, exercise, released any negative energy in relationships, and changed my food to whole food, real food, and I was able to reverse the cancer in a year just by changing my lifestyle. Thank you. And so that's why I started learning to cook again in a different way, to make the healthy stuff I needed to eat, like garlic and onions and lemon and cabbage, taste really good so that I could stick with it for a lifetime. Because diets don't work because you just think about that. We don't have to explain it. I mean, if you do something for a short period and then you go back to what you were doing, you're going to get what you got, right? So I don't believe in diets. I believe in lifestyle changes. And that's what I made. And so so we're going to do a couple of our demonstrations of a couple of our dishes. So for most of you should have saw the menu online, but just as a reminder, we are having raw lasagna rolls with the cashew cream sauce and a walnut pesto, and one of my favorites, marinara sauces. So it's lasagna without the guilt. And Madea helped me make this dinner, because usually I do all of the cooking, but I realized I was exhausted. I could barely, I was so happy to get home after this, I couldn't really stand anymore. So I decided to ask her, because she's such a great chef, to help make some of the dishes. So some my recipes, some her recipes, so we collaborated on this. So that's what you'll be tasting tonight. So do the raw lasagna rolls, and then we have, we're going to start with soup, a roasted sweet potato soup with kidney beans. And then we have, why don't you tell them about the salads we're doing?
Sure. So we have a broccoli salad with shallots and cranberry and a tahini dressing. And the other salad is one of my favorites. It's a rainbow slaw without the mayo. So it's a citrus-based vinaigrette, and it has delicious apple to give it that sweetness and the scallion.
Yeah, and then we're doing traditional mushroom stuffing with gravy. Of course, you got to have gravy on a holiday dinner, right? So, but again, it's a guilt-free and it's really good. So we're excited. And then we're going to finish off with a lemon cashew cheesecake with a little coconut cream. So I'm excited. How about you? All right. So I'm going to move a couple of things here. There we go. And I want to thank Kia, who's just one of my faithful volunteers here. Let's give her a hand. If you ever want to volunteer, let me know. I had 2 or 3 other people, and something, one of them came down with a cold because they didn't call me soon enough for me to tell them what to take to get rid of that in a day. And I was like, why didn't you call me 2 days ago? We could have had this wiped out. So he's at home recuperating, probably watching. And then another, unfortunately, got in a car accident yesterday. So we're a little short-handed, but we thank you guys for sticking with us. These things happen. You don't get the notice till this morning, but, roll with it, and it all works out, right? So we're going to get started with our, do we want a zucchini to show them how to cut it? We can have her grab one.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have my...
You want to go grab that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's going to show you, because I know some people are like, how do you get the zucchini sliced thin enough? So I actually want to show you how to do it. I have a mandolin. So that's how you get them nice and thin and consistent. You can do it with a knife, but that takes a lot more time, and it probably won't be as consistent with the thinness of it. So I love kitchen tools. So anytime I see a new kitchen tool, I'm like, I got to get this. I got to get the immersion blender, especially if you're like pureeing soup, like the creamy roasted sweet potato soup we're having. Much easier if you just get a hand immersion blender. That way you don't have to transfer it from the pot to a blender, especially when it's hot. That can be a little dangerous and tricky. So you just get an immersion blender and you put it right in the pot, stir it, and you're good to go. Cuts out a lot of time. Not even very expensive, too. I do love my trusty equipment, my blender. Any high-speed blender will work. So I recommend getting a decent blender, but any blender will work when you're starting out. And then a food processor. That'll cut your time way down too, with making the gravy, for example, and chopping the tomatoes, not the tomatoes, but the onions, celery. You just dump it in there, and it's a lot quicker. So a blender, a food processor, and a good knife. And then if you're ready, you can get fun stuff like my lemon zester, lemon press, garlic press. There's a bunch of wonderful things. We're going to zest a little lemon, show you how we did the cheesecake. So there's a lot of different tools, but just start with what you have and make it work, and then you can slowly add to it. So don't think you've got to go out and buy a whole new kitchen just to get started. So she's going to grab that zucchini and show you how to slice it. But what we did was we kind of deconstructed it, and we have 3 sauces that we're putting in. So instead of, let's say, what traditionally goes into a lasagna, which is obviously cheese, but sometimes like a cottage cheese or something like that, we're going to use this walnut pesto, which gives it the richness and things like that, but without the saturated fat, animals, protein that we don't need, and you still get a great amount of protein with this, but without all the negative stuff that cow's milk brings to us. So I'm going to take a minute to talk about cheese, because so many people say, oh, I can do vegetarian, but vegan, it's the cheese, and I get it, because I was the same way. I didn't think I could live without cheese or eggs really, because so many things have it in there. But I learned how to make all of that stuff that I liked without it. The main thing that helped me get over cheese was just cutting it for at least 30 days without having little bits of it. You know, I tried the let's, just cut down, but then you still have the craving. I found that when you cut it out completely, you lose the craving because it has addictive properties in it, the casein and casomorphine and all those things that make you crave it. Until you stop it, you're just kind of feeding it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. So that helped me. And then when I went back to have cheese, I didn't even like it anymore, which was amazing to me because I loved cheese. I could just eat cubes of cheese for no reason. So that was really amazing. Another thing that helped me was to remind me why I wasn't eating it. For example, I'm like, what is cheese really? It's concentrated milk, which is food for baby cows. It's not food for humans. It's food that makes a baby cow grow really big in a few months. So it's full of growth hormone. And it's full of animal protein for that species of animal, not for us. And it also causes lots of inflammation in the body. And I was trying to reduce inflammation in the body. So I didn't want to add anything to my diet that would cause an inflammatory response, like cheese or milk. And cheese is even more concentrated than milk. So it's really worse. And it's got more saturated fat, more cholesterol. That most saturated fat and cholesterol in the American diet comes from dairy products, not even from meat. And imagine that, how much meat we eat, but we're getting most of the saturated fat and cholesterol from dairy because it's in everything. So I had to remind myself why I wasn't eating it, and then I would remind myself of the conditions which those animals were raised, and it helped me break the attachment, the emotional attachment to cheese when it's like re-educating yourself. So that was important. So that helped me get over it. Then I started making delicious things like this cashew cream sauce that we're going to use, and other things, cashew cheese, cashew ricotta, all kinds of things that you can replace it with. They even have some store-bought ones, the Dea cheese, that you can use to make lasagnas and things like that. So, and you won't have my butternut squash lasagna, but I will be demonstrating that tomorrow on Good Morning Washington. So you can tune in for that at about 9:15. I think you can watch it online. It's ABC7. So I'm doing a lot of cooking this weekend. So let's get started, and I'll let you show them how we made these wonderful zucchini strips.
Okay, great. So what you can use is either a very sharp knife, which I have here, nice chef knife, keep it sharp, or a mandolin. So the mandolin allows you to just put the product across the blade, and there is this safety attachment. So
definitely use the safety attachment. If you're a beginner, always use the safety.
For sure, you want your fingertips intact. So first, what I'll do is just cut off the ends. Okay, and one way I do it is I actually slice down the middle, or you can start to run it along. So there are settings to demonstrate which thickness you want. So the width from very, very thin to very thick. And I went, I think, in the middle road. The thin one was too thin, and it was like falling apart. So I'm not actually going to use my safety attachment, but please use your safety attachment. Because
she's an experienced chef.
Because it's not very effective in really holding it down. So you want one that goes like all the way through to pierce it. So you're going to make sure you're keeping your fingertips clear from the blade and just slide it across. You can put this over a bowl actually, or you can just do it over the cutting board. So that's pretty much what it is. And they have
various types. My mandolin is one that sits on the counter, so it's a little more stable, so that might be good for beginners too. And then you run across it as well.
Yep, so for the lasagna, you just want a nice width to it. You don't want it too thin, but you want it long enough so that it actually holds the components and stays together. So there you go.
Awesome. All right. So we are going to now kind of put it together, which is the hard part, right?
So the zucchini is like the noodle.
Exactly. So what's great about using new vegetables as noodles is that you're, cutting out a lot of carbohydrates. And we tend to overeat carbohydrates, especially wheat. We tend to have lasagna and garlic bread and all that together, and it's just redundant. So we eat too much starch at once. This is a great way to do that. You can save your starch for the stuffing, And so this way, you cut down on those sugars, especially if you're using processed grains. You want to use a whole grain, noodle anyway if you're using real noodles and not use like just the durum or wheat. You want to use whole grain 100% or use like brown rice or gluten-free, which is I usually use as a gluten-free noodle.
Want to do it together? Or?
Yeah, we can do it together. Let's tell them about what's in the pesto and the cheese sauce.
Sure. So the pesto has walnuts, which are awesome brain foods. It has basil, aromatics. In addition to the basil, it has a little oregano. There's salt, pepper, a little oil. But that, thick consistency is coming from the walnut. So you soak your walnuts overnight to make them more digestible, but then to give you a good texture when you're rolling your lasagna.
And we'll hold it up so they can see in a moment.
Okay. But Italian cooking is all about those just beautiful aromatics like the oregano, basil, marjoram, thyme, and the fresh herbs give you that like brighter flavor.
And that's the key, especially when you're doing raw food. Season. You have to season every layer. It's not like when a lot of chefs or just recipes rely on dairy and things to bring all of the flavor out because there's a lot of salt in cheese. But when you're leaving that out, you got to fortify it with flavor, but good flavor, because all those things she just mentioned are very nourishing for the body too. So let's lift it up because I know they can't see all of that. So this is just the first layer. So you just spread it out. Can you see that? Okay. You just spread it out, and then, like I said, this is the hard part, right? And so we just, in the food processor, you put all those ingredients and just pulse, and that's it. So not very difficult at all. All right, next layer. Let's tell them about the...
So this is a cashew cream. It has a base, of course, of cashews that has been soaked. So cashews already have like just great fat. It's a healthy fat, plant-based fat. So that gives it that little like creamy, cheesy texture. And we also added nutritional yeast. So that also gives it that kind of cheesy feel and flavor. Little salt, pepper, garlic, of course.
Yeah, and it's a multi-purpose, this cashew cream sauce. I use it in like a ton of different things. It's got a really good flavor, like she mentioned, that nutritional yeast. Someone asked me in the store the other day, what do you use this for? I was like, it really just, almost like a Parmesan cheese. You can just sprinkle it on stuff that you would, grits. I'm from the South, I like grits. I put that on there. Popcorn, you can sprinkle it on, but you can also, anytime you're making a cream sauce, it helps bring it creamier and thicken things up. And it's got some good B vitamins and other things. All right, so that's layer 2, so you can see that. And then we roll, and then we're going to top with the tomato sauce. You could put the tomato sauce in as well if you wanted to.
I'm going to do it from this side.
Okay. And then we just secure it with a toothpick. And we put it on our plate.
Yum.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Dollop some sauce. And we could have put it inside of the layer as well. I think presentation-wise, it's just really beautiful when you get that sauce, all the flavor in there, the basil, oregano, thyme. Yep.
Are you guys ready for this? Yeah. I know, I really want to eat it right now, but I'm going to wait because I can't talk and eat at the same time, as I have learned from doing that. So I'm going to put that here. So that's really easy. That's way easier than a traditional lasagna, is it not? Yeah. And quicker, but it's healthier. Got a ton of flavor, and you don't have to wait for noodles to boil or anything like that. And no animals had to die or give up their milk for us to make this, right? So No oven at all. Now, you could put that in the oven, but I wouldn't. You taste it like this, and you serve it at about room temperature, and it's really great. So you could, if you make it the day before, just sit it out so that it kind of gets to that room temperature. You can have it cold, but I like it at about room temperature, which is the best. And then there you have it. So for those who haven't cooked before, you can give this a try. You can even buy, I know a lot of men are like, they're not doing this, but you can even buy, they have zucchini noodles already in the store, which is kind of a ripoff because they're so expensive. Do you know how many noodles one zucchini makes? I have a spiralizer. I spent $10 that I still use all the time to make zucchini noodles. You could do that and put this sauce on top of that if you don't want to go through the trouble of rolling it. Let's say you're just doing it for yourself. You don't feel like doing that. You can just get those noodles, and you can even warm those noodles up if you want. The zucchini noodles, and then just the same sauce. Or sometimes I've just done it with the cashew and the tomato sauce, and that's really good too. So there are a lot of options, same ingredients, but the thing with raw food is texture, and different textures bring out different flavor. So this tastes a lot different than cubed zucchini versus shredded zucchini versus spiral. They all taste different. So when you're switching up the textures, it makes a difference, and that keeps it interesting too. So I always like to make our menu to have some cooked food as well as raw food, because we need to eat more raw, because it gives us those enzymes that we need to help break down the food. Okay, so the next recipe is Madea's recipe of the cabbage apple slaw. So I'm going to turn it over to you for that one.
Great. All right. So I'll just talk about it more so than preparing it. So I grew up loving kale greens, and my mom, she would braise, like traditional Southern cooking, braising the kale and collards together. But she didn't put ham hocks, she put onions, tomato, basil, garlic, apple cider vinegar. It's just really delicious. So I grew up with a love affair for kale. I try to put kale in every single thing. So slaw, that really just comes from cabbage. Traditional slaws have cabbage, carrots, a mayonnaise base, and maybe sometimes, raisins. So I decided with this to do a play on that traditional slaw, keeping the flavor there, but taking out that mayo with the hydrogenated oils and making a really delicious citrus dressing. So one awesome ingredient in the dressing is the cardamom. So cardamom, it's an Indian spice, and it's considered a carminative, and what that means, it helps you to actually reduce gas. So a lot of people complain about, the cabbage and kale. I don't want to eat it because it just gives me gas. You're missing out on so much nutrition. This is anti-cancerous city right here, so you want to get plenty. But sometimes our gut health doesn't allow us to actually digest the food. So what we really need to do is include herbs and spices that give us flavor, but also the ability to digest the food, to break it down. So cardamom is a beautiful bright spice. Oftentimes they're in the Indian restaurants, there's a little bowl that has the candied spices, and you can take one and bite on it. It's just like a burst of sunshine. So that's what I wanted to mention about the dressing. Everybody's saying eat salads, eat more salads, but if you don't have good flavor on your salad, if you don't have a dressing that's going to make you want to eat the salad, what's the point? So if you don't remember anything, you have to learn how to do a dressing from scratch, because that's going to give you awesome flavor, maximum nutrition, and you're going to reduce those oils that are not so healthy for you, like the soybean oils. So I'll just talk a bit about how I cut the particular items in the salad. So the apple, which gives us that sweet component, what I did was I cored it by quartering, meaning cut it into 4 pieces. And you can go to a store, a kitchen supply store, and they have the core. You can just put it right through, but I like to use my knife for everything, and I don't like a lot of clutter in terms of equipment, so I maximize space. So to do a core with a knife, you're just going to go in at an angle. So you have that core removed just like that. Super simple. And then from there, slice the apple in half, and then you got these beautiful bite-sized pieces. So as Dr. Ruby was sharing, it's all about how you cut to coax certain flavors. So when we're eating a whole apple and chewing it, it's not necessarily the release of flavors as to when we thinly slice it. So really get a knife skills class in, or get a really good knife so you know how to break down your vegetables to coax different flavors out of your vegetables and fruits.
That's true, because sometimes having a dull knife can be more dangerous than a sharp knife, because you put too much pressure and then you kind of lose control of it.
Yep.
So it's much better to have a good quality knife and know how to use it carefully. A sharp knife, you have to be careful because, any little nick can do it too, but it's really definitely something you want to look into. And what I love about this salad is that it has a lot of color because, we've heard of eat the rainbow, right? And so those different colors of foods have different nutrients. Cabbage is a strong cancer fighter, especially red cabbage has even more antioxidants. So anytime you can get raw cabbage in, cooked is good too, but raw cabbage is great. And kale, we know that's a superfood because it has more nutrition than most other greens because it's a dark, heavy, leafy green. And then we got the onion. I ate lots of onions and garlic. I was eating like 8 cloves a day when I was doing my cancer recovery. I didn't worry about smelling like garlic. Sometimes I steamed it, but this is why I use a lot of onions and garlic in my recipes, because I needed to get a lot in, and lemon. And not only that, they bring a lot of flavor to most things. So instead of relying on heavy cream and cheese and all that, we can use real food to give the flavor that we want. And so that's why you can start looking at recipes that you like and just start veganizing them. Figure out how to take those ingredients that people rely on, bacon and things like that bring a lot of flavor, and replace that, like with mushroom bacon that you can do in the oven or dehydrate. There's even eggplant-like bacon you can do in the dehydrator, or in the oven. So there's a lot you can do, but I love this salad because it brings together, a lot of sweet and savory things at the same time, but super nutritious, and you can eat it all day and not feel any guilt. And we use olive oil, right?
Yes.
Extra virgin olive oil is best uncooked, unheated. So in a dish like this, that's where we'd use olive oil. So are you guys ready to try that too? Yes, okay. So that's coming up. And then, so I sometimes like to take questions. So before she goes and gets all our beautiful plating together, I'll take a couple, and if there's some online too, we'll take a few questions.
Okay, I noticed that with the lasagna slices from cucumber, you left a little portion at the end that didn't have any of the sauce on it. Was that so that it could adhere and kind of create like a fastener, so to speak, when you mold it?
Absolutely, because if you have sauce there, it's just going to spill over and not seal. Yep.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I recommend getting knives from.
She says, where do I recommend getting knives from? I order some online. I just like certain brands of knives. Maybe you have any preferences?
To be honest, this is my knife kit from culinary school from like 16 years ago. So that just speaks to the quality. These are Messermeister German construction. So you shouldn't have to keep buying a knife. It's a really good knife. It should last you a lifetime.
That's true. Yeah, I spend a decent amount on a knife too. When I was like $150 for a knife, but I plan to keep that forever, and it doesn't dull, and it's good quality. So I just researched a couple of brands that I like and go with those. Mm-hmm.
Do you talk about when you consume like your bitters and sweets, like during certain portions of the meal, because they cause a different reaction, right? Like alkaline or like acidic. So like, do you maybe like do the bitters first, or like is there any order? I just want to ask, is there any order that you do like your bitters and sweets?
I don't. I mean, generally, I do fruits and savory separate as much as possible. But I don't really get down to that level. I mean, sometimes fruit is easier to digest, so in the morning it goes down really easy, and if you're going to be eating late at night, that's the best thing to eat because it's going to digest the quickest. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, honestly, I love bitter and sweet together because the sweet can kind of temper the bitter. I would say since we all are unique, there's something that's called bio-individuality, meaning that one diet's not going to fit everybody. So you experiment with taking the bitter first or the sweet first and see how you feel. Notice. And then if you notice that works for you, keep going. If not, don't.
All right. Okay. Sure. Any other questions? Okay.
Do you use always olive oil, or how about the coconut oil? What's the difference? Can you switch those two in the recipes?
Well, there is a difference. It depends. Like the next recipe I'm going to do is cheesecake. You really need coconut oil for that because it solidifies when it's cold and things like that, and it has a different flavor. Usually, as I mentioned, olive oil is best not heated because you tend to kill a lot of the nutrients when you heat it, whereas coconut oil can withstand heat and still maintain its integrity. So I generally use coconut oil for cooking, overheat, olive oil in raw dishes, and still just limit it and don't go overboard. I usually saute in water, just add a little oil most of the time because you really don't need all that added fat, but you can add a little bit for the flavor. Do you have any favorites?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. That's a good point, so the people can hear. The question was, what oil is best to use, coconut or olive oil?
Yeah, and what you're speaking to, Dr. Ruby, is the different smoke points of oils. So some oils are more appropriate for sauteing and some are better for raw preparation. But it depends on the flavor profile of the dish. So if she's preparing something sweet, then you want that natural sweetness from the coconut oil. Sometimes I bake with olive oil if I want that, earthy flavor in my cakes. So it really depends on flavor profile and smoke point. In the application, what are you going to do with the oil?
Yeah, and the olive tends to be more savory, coconut tends to be more sweet. So, but if you're, don't be frying stuff up, but if you are, it's probably best to use coconut oil. Yeah, you can usually bake most things and coat them in without having to deep fry, because you just think about how much oil you're using and how much it's absorbing. I tend to stay away from that unless I'm eating out, splurge every now and then with some sweet potato fries or something, but that's not something I would ever cook because I'd feel too guilty about all that oil. So the less oil is good, but we don't have to go overboard. Everything, good things, even in moderation. So, and particularly with heart disease, you want to really limit the amount of oil if you're dealing with that and trying to reverse it.
Thank you. One of the barriers to eating healthy, especially a vegan or raw diet consistently, occurs when it requires such an inordinate amount of time with the prepping of the food. So with regard to the dishes that you just prepared, for an average person who's like not at a chef level, and maybe you all prepared from this in advance, what would you say would be the average prep time from start to finish? And would you recommend that we could actually pre-prep some of these things before actually making it, and how long would it keep for?
Yeah, several of these can, especially if you're doing a big dinner or even a medium-sized dinner, you can definitely prep some of this ahead of time, like the sauces and things will last for several days, right, in the refrigerator, and sometimes they taste even better because the flavors set in. So even up to 4 days in advance, you could prep some of this stuff pretty easily. It depends on what you're making and how often you've made it. The more I make something, the quicker I get at it. Usually the first time I make something, I'm going slow, I'm reading, and so it takes longer, 30 minutes or so. But if I've done it a couple times, I can get it, half that time. So it depends. It's just practice. The more you get comfortable in the kitchen, the easier it gets. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. I've thrown out dishes before that were like, oh, this was awful. But and I felt bad, but I was like, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not giving it to anybody. But it's part of the learning process. If you don't make mistakes, you never really learn. I mean, so you learn a lot from the mistakes that you make. So. And then I have some friends who like everything I cook, even when I think it's nasty. So, it's good when you have those people around and say, here, you can. you can have this dish. But it's just a practice thing. You get quicker the more you practice, and then you get a couple of cool tools to speed it up. But average time, I would say 20 to 30 minutes to probably 30 minutes to make a meal. I do simple meals. I don't do like 4 things for dinner. I do like 2 things and call it a day, just so I don't like always being in the kitchen because I've got other things. So anything you want to add to that?
I mean, that was pretty thorough. I mean, where your priorities are, that's where you spend your time. And like she said, if you're doing it often, then you reduce the learning curve and you're going to get faster. But you answered your own question when you said prep. If you have ingredients prepped, things already sliced and diced and just ready to go, pick one day out of the week to prep for the week. So your actual preparation time is less than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Promise, last question. This may be a matter of semantics, but as I'm sitting here thinking, and even as I asked the question, for a lot of people who did not come from a plant-based background, we think of anything not cooked as prepping. So I'm thinking, so did you make that or did you prepare that? And then to prepare it in advance, that's prepping. I mean, you know.
I think it's prepping. Like, I'm sure you made the pesto the day before. Oh, the question I keep forgetting. So it's just like, is this prepping or cooking when we're making these?
Making versus prepping.
Making versus prepping. Yeah, prepping is when you're, so what is prepping versus making? Right. Prepping is when you are putting the stuff together in advance that you're going to then combine to make something. So making this stuff in advance makes it a lot easier for when you're actually ready to put it all together. As you saw, we made it really fast, but it took longer than that if we were actually, doing each step right now. So, it's prepping, but it's really kind of making it too, because we're just going to assemble it when it's raw. So, yeah.
I have a question. How did you make the tomato sauce? What ingredients did you use?
Sure, and you can find this. So the question was, what goes into the tomato sauce? You can actually see me make that tomato sauce online. It's when I do a raw squash, and I use this tomato sauce. Like I said, a lot of my sauces are multi-purpose. So it has sun-dried tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, dates for a little sweetness. It should have a little nutritional yeast, and I brought the menu, so in case I forgot something. Yeah, and then, that's about oregano, basil, some fresh shallots, all of that. So it's a really hearty sauce. I mean, you're going to love this sauce. Everyone always loves that. And you can go to my YouTube channel and watch me make it, too. Yeah, okay. All right, Sure.
You can buy organic, or you can have it already cut in the store. They've already cut it for you. You still like spending the money.
Oh, what, on organic tomato sauce?
I mean, no, cut vegetables.
Oh, sure, because I was going to say, you can't get this sauce in the store. You could. If you want to spend the money and save some time if we're in a rush, yeah, you could do that. That's true. So, or you could, whip out your food processor and chop it really quick, too. But yeah, I understand. The shortcuts work sometimes. You can buy the sliced mushrooms instead of the whole ones if you're in a rush, and just use it. So it does work.
For some people that are moving from a more traditional, just regular type of diet to vegan or vegetarian, they're trying to replace the norm for what you have for breakfast. What would be something that you would have for breakfast as a vegan recipe?
Sure. I usually have a smoothie for breakfast because I like to get a bunch of stuff in right off the bat. And so I put a lot of stuff in it. I put a protein powder, I put greens, I put 3 different fruits at least, a lot of berries. I put probably pumpkin seeds, some hemp seeds, another green powder. So I feel like I get a huge boost, and I get started with getting vegetables, green leafy greens in at the beginning of the day. So since there's so much in it, it usually takes me a while to drink it. So that gives me a lot of energy. If I don't do that, if I'm out, I might do oatmeal or, but I really like my smoothie. I stick with that. But, sometimes I do brunch and there's gluten-free pancakes and grits. So I do that too. So pretty much anything you normally have for breakfast, you can veganize it. Yeah. And I know you have some prep, so I will let you go to finish. Sure. And then I'll get to my next piece. But any other questions? And then folks who've been plant-based for a while, maybe you have a suggestion for breakfast. What do you do?
I think what you said is really good. Just like kind of breaking that conditioning that we're subject to, because like I don't know if you see what the help, but like you're just talking about how so many of those items that we eat should never be in the morning in the first place. So I think a great thing to do would be to break that conditioning and get like a lot of the leafy greens for myself. I make my smoothie with spinach, kale, and avocado. It can really almost taste like a creamy like shake. But like after I put like the chlorophyll and like just whatever, like she said, at least like 3 fruits and some vegetables, and that'll last for at least maybe like 3 to 4 hours.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the breakfast I used to do, more with the heavy foods, like with toast and even veggie sausage and grits and all that, it leaves me feeling tired instead of energy. So I'm full, but now I'm sleepy. So it's like I need to go back to bed just to get enough, energy to keep going. That's why I prefer fruit and leafy greens for breakfast, because that's what gives me energy, and it's like a wake me up. And then I start the day with, 2 glasses of water. That's how I wake up, instead of coffee, which is much healthier. So yeah, you can, just kind of shift the thinking on breakfast. Some of those things are good. Like I said, I like a good brunch, and I'll eat those. But even at a brunch, I'm going to have some raw, at least like a kale salad or something to balance it out. And if I'm doing savory and I'm doing something like grits or tofu scramble, I'm still going to do some broccoli and tomatoes, something green that has life to balance it out, because too many carbohydrates tend to just drain the energy. And if you feel tired after eating, that's an indication that your body didn't like that. You might have liked it, but your body was like, nope, try again tomorrow. Let's get this right. Because food is energy. I mean, it's actually how it's calculated. When we calculate calories, it's like how much energy is in this food. So if your food does the opposite of giving you energy, then there's a problem. And it's not always just because we ate too much, it's that we ate the wrong thing. So, yes.
I've read mixed reviews on protein powder.
Sure. So she said she heard mixed reviews on protein powders, and wanted to know if I could recommend one and why, some are good or not. So I like protein powders, but not all. I personally like grain-free protein powders, because we just get a lot of grains. Sometimes people switching to vegetarian or vegan tend to eat a lot of processed grains, and then that's just you're getting more in a protein powder. So you obviously want to avoid whey protein, because that's milk. A lot of people don't know that, but that's milk. I don't really prefer even soy protein, because it's somewhat concentrated. So I usually go for a grain-free that uses hemp seeds or pumpkin seeds or even pea protein. Those just tend to, again, give me that energy as opposed to kind of taking it away. Protein powders are good, especially if you're active and we need on average, about 50 grams of protein a day. Obviously, that goes up if you work out a lot, if you're bigger, taller, whatever. So it just helps me get that in, because a scoop of protein powder has about 19 to 20 grams of protein. So it helps you meet those requirements pretty easily that way. So that's why I like them. It gives you that energy. And if it's a good protein powder like Garden of Life or Sun Warrior, where it's organic, I think it should be organic, then you're getting a lot of other nutrients and probiotics and things in it as well. So it can be very beneficial. What's that? I blend it in with my smoothie, yeah. Some you can just mix with water. Yeah, sure. All right. Any other questions before we move on? Okay.
What brand of knives do you recommend?
So I don't have a strong, my knives are Salad Master, because I've use Salad Master and have been a distributor of those, and they have a really great knife set. The other is a Japanese knife that I can't remember the name of it because it's a Japanese name. So, but I'm happy to send that to you. It's like in the back of my brain is trying to come up, but I might remember it before I finish here. But yeah, so those are the two that I use most commonly. Yeah, and then I also, when I'm not making anything a big deal, when cutting a small onion, I've used this knife for like 15 years, and this was like a $15 knife. I had like Bed Bath & Beyond or something, but it's been incredible. So a small paring knife, because it's, I like my big knife when I'm doing a lot of cooking, but for a little thing, I just need one onion. I'm just going to whip this out and use it. But I do like a good knife, but this has stayed sharp for all this time, so. All right. All right, so I'm going to make our cheesecake. Was there another question? Okay. Here. So we're going to start with the crust first. So probably if everybody's had cheesecake before, usually they use like a graham cracker crust, right? You can use that, but if you buy it from the store, it's got a lot of junk in it. So, so I like to make my own with nuts. You can also, if you're like, don't want to do too many nuts, because there are alternatives. You can use mulberries. It makes a good crust too. They're berries, but they're very dry like a nut. So sometimes I've used that as the crust. Especially if somebody has a nut allergy, I'll use mulberries instead of walnuts or almonds or something like that for a crust. So that is an option, just so you know. But for this one, we are using almonds for the crust. So I'm just going to put those in there. Let's see. And I'm notorious for not using recipes and leaving stuff out, but you make really interesting stuff when you leave things out. So, brand new recipes, yeah, so I'm just gonna refer to that. Okay, so we're using some dates. So instead of like sugar, we're gonna use these medjool dates, or these might be Nor dates, either one. Dates that have been pitted, and that's going to bring the sweetness to this. And we don't need a lot of sweetness because this is the crust. So, all right, so be sure to pit your dates or buy them already pitted, or it'll make a lot of noise in here. Let's see. We're using a little flaxseed as a binder. Also, it gives you some extra nutrition and protein too. With our flaxseed. The flaxseed is actually optional because I have made it without the flaxseed, but it's good fiber and other things, so, and it helps it stick together a little bit. And then we're using a little bit of lemon juice, and that is because this is a lemon cashew cheesecake, and I want to bring lemon out in every layer. So we are just going to put that in there. If you're just doing a regular crust, you wouldn't use the lemon. But for this recipe, we want things to be lemony. All right. So we've got our lemon. And then that's it. So not a lot of ingredients. All good stuff. All right. And then we just... It a little bit more. You want it nice and granular. You don't want to go too long. It'll turn into a paste. You don't want that. So that's why you use pulse. Don't just hit on and let it go. It'll get carried away. So, all right. Okay. So just kind of test it, see if it's got the right consistency. It could pulse a little bit more, a little chunky. I just wanted to say thank you. So I have so many friends who've been to my events many times, so many familiar faces. There's Khadija here and Alicia and so many of you guys. And my trainer, raise your hand, Dupree Allen is back there. He's helping me get into shape, or even better shape, I shall say. So he's really good. And when I was starting back, because I fell off the wagon because I got so busy, I stopped exercising, and that was not a good thing. And so I said, I need help getting back on track, because again, it's the holistic lifestyle, right? I can't tell my clients to exercise if I'm not. It's like, okay, I gotta exercise. And so I'm the kind of person that needs help when doing things I don't really want to do. So yeah, I met him through a friend, Demetrius, at New Vegan, one of my favorite places, because they have the cooked food when you want to splurge, get some fried whatever, or you can get the raw food that they have there. So we kind of met there when my dad was visiting, and so you hang out with the right places, you meet good people, right? So anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out. Thanks for coming. And if you guys want to get into shape, give him a call. Or get in better shape, because you guys look good here, I have to say. This is a great looking crowd. So give yourselves a hand. Yeah, so definitely, I like to surround myself with good people. And I know Khadija teaches kickboxing and some other stuff, right? What classes do you teach? A lot of good stuff. Aqua certified, all right, yeah. So, you know, birds of a feather flock together. So when you start hanging out with people who are eating healthy, you know, you just get healthier all around. So that's a good thing. And then somebody mentioned, so many things going through my brain while I start cooking, things start percolating. See, it's just like starting this thing, I get in the zone. So I get my best thoughts when I'm cooking. Somebody mentioned what the health. I was like, how could I not mention that? Obviously, I'm in that movie, if you haven't seen it already. And I was really excited to be a part of that. Obviously, none of us had any idea that it was going to go so viral and make the impact that it has, but it has. I get emails every day from people who are changing their lives, even my own family members. It took them, my brothers, my hard-headed brothers, they don't mind me saying that, for them watching the movie, for them to get on board, even though I had been preaching the vegan, whole food lifestyle for a while. I remember when I went, and I'm just going to mash this into the bowl I'm talking. This is how we make our crust. Now, if you were making a big, you can do it on one big pie pan or a spring form pan, but I'm just going to mash it in here, these individuals. Yeah, I remember when I started really going whole food, I was telling my parents all the stuff they needed to get rid of, the additives, preservatives. And I was like, let me just clean out your pantry and refrigerator. And so we got a big trash bag, because there was a lot of stuff. Anything that had high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oil, artificial food coloring, artificial sweeteners, we're like dumping it. And then my brother comes in, because he lives near them. He's like, what are you doing? You're throwing away good food? I'll take that. And he's grabbing stuff. And I was like, okay. And he's kind of making fun of the whole thing, right? And then after he saw the movie, he calls me up. He's like, all right, I'm in now. I'm going to do it. And he calls me after about 2.5 weeks after switching his diet to vegan, and was like, this is incredible. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. You know, he was having this chronic knee pain, and he liked to run, and he wasn't able to do that. And it was just every day. A lot of mucus and phlegm. Congestion. You hear a lot of people who are walking around sound a little congested all the time. If you're eating dairy, you probably are. He said all that's gone. You know, he's dropping weight. You know, his whole family joined him in the vegan thing. And I was like, that's awesome. I was like, it's fine. It took me being on a movie, whatever it takes to get you there, I'll take it. And he has a twin brother, and he did the same thing. And he's like, he lost weight, and he's like, am I going to get too small? It's like, no, you're not. You're just losing what you need to lose. And then you build it up with good fat, good protein. And so he's doing great, too. So it's been really good. You know, to see people, even in my own family, make those changes. But I get calls from all around the world of people who are now wondering what to do, to make that change. And so I have a good health coach and friend, Tony Sinclair, and we put together a 28-day transition to vegan program. So thank you, if you are still trying to figure out what to do, you can sign up. It's an online program. It walks you through. It gives you 4 weeks of, so it's over 70 recipes. It gives you a shopping list. It gives you pretty much everything you need to figure out this without worrying about missing things. It gives you a guide for protein and things like that. And I can speed this up because I can keep talking. So, so that's something you can definitely get online, or if you know somebody who's trying to figure out what to do, who's just like totally lost, this is a good starting point. And then we have calls. Somebody's alarm clock is going off. So we have calls every month or so to give tips, and we record those. So it's a lot of support. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to sign up for that. So anyway, we get the crust here. This is why I love cooking. It's therapeutic. I could talk to you guys all day just mashing this crust. But it doesn't take all day. If I was just doing this in my kitchen, I'd been done by now. So anyway, so we mash the crust, and it sets pretty well. So you want to give it a good firm, pressing so that it stays together. And it should stay together. Great. I was hoping you'd get a shot of the crowd, too. Let's see. So we've got our crust, and so we set that aside. You can put it in the refrigerator. That's one of the things you could prep in advance, or like I said, just do it in a single pie pan. And then next, we're going to make our the filling. So we started with macadamia nuts, and I soaked these already and drained them. Soaked them overnight. That helps. So about a half a cup of those. I'm just going to go ahead. All of that. And then we have our cashews, which I also soaked. For this recipe, it's great that they're soaked because it helps the blending a lot better. So we put our cashews. Now there are ways around nuts. You can use, sunflower seeds and other things if you have a nut allergy. Fortunately, nobody here does because I asked you that in advance. So. They are raw, unsalted nuts, so that's what you want all the time. And that helps you. You tend not to eat as many when they're raw and unsalted. Like you eat a can of that salted stuff, you could eat the whole thing. But when they're raw, you tend not to do that. So this is coconut cream, which is just the more the fatty part of the coconut. Like if you have regular coconut in a can and you put it in the refrigerator, the cream is going to solidify on top, or you can just buy coconut cream, either one. So we want mostly the cream for this recipe. I'm just going to here. And then we're putting coconut oil. So yes, it's decadent like cheesecake, except no cholesterol. Coconut does have a little saturated fat. A little saturated fat is fine. I don't know why I do that. I'm going to put it all in. And then we're going to put, for our sweetener, our pure maple syrup. So generally, it used to be you want B, but they're switching it to dark and light now. And yeah, so you want dark. But generally it's grade B, but a lot of people brought that to my attention. They were having a hard time finding the grade B, and that's because a lot of them are switching to just regular grade A or 1 grade and just doing dark and light. So you want the question was this grade B maple syrup, or what grade was it? So, okay, so we're going to put a little lemon zest. We washed this already. Lemon zest is just a little bit of the peel. It brings out lemon flavor a lot more. And yes, you can eat the peel of oranges and lemons. Another cool tool, yes, you need something like this to zest. It's just like a very fine grater. This is also what we use to zest the nutmeg that was in the cashew nog. How did you like that? Yeah, great. No, we didn't need any. You said more? Okay. I think there's more. We didn't need any chickens to help us make that. So we'll leave those chickens alone. Where do I get my nuts? I usually get them at Mom's Organic or Whole Foods. Sometimes at Costco has some too. Costco has some good frozen fruit and things. So you just go light. You don't go too deep. You don't want too much of the white because that gets bitter. So you just go lightly around it like that. So that's enough for this recipe. All right. So we're going to put some more lemon juice in there. And when you're zesting things, make sure you get a nice organic lemon or because you're using that peel and wash it really good. All right, and I'm going to use the other. So after you zest it, then you can squeeze it in. So zest it first, because obviously it's hard to zest it when it's like this, right? And you can do this cheesecake with any flavor you want. I just chose lemon. It's a nice bright flavor. You could do pumpkin, sweet potato, chocolate, whatever you want. If we were doing chocolate, we just leave out the lemon. Might have just a splash of lemon, but we would, just use raw cacao powder, maybe a little bit more maple syrup because it can be a little bitter. And then that's about it. And then a little vanilla extract. And this is, again, organic, or you could use vanilla bean if you wanted to keep it, 100% raw. You can also use a dash of organic lemon extract if you don't think we have enough lemon, which we probably do, but just to be sure. This is also the secret ingredient for my sweet potato pie. Is that lemon cheesecake? And I put lemon in it because my Aunt Ruby, it's her recipe, but I inherited some of her skills. She's like one of the, besides my grandmother, the family's best cook. So I called her up one day. I was like, okay, I need the sweet potato recipe, but I'm going to veganize it. So she told me how to make it, and it was like, the only thing that had measurements was the sweet potatoes. That was it. And she was like, enough sugar till it's sweet, a couple of eggs, maybe, because I told her I'm making like about 10 sweet potato pies. She's like, okay, maybe a dozen eggs, enough sugar till it's sweet, some milk. So I was like, okay. I kind of got it because I don't measure either, but I had to translate that into an actual recipe. And it worked, and it was good. And she said, lemon, some lemon extract, half as much of lemon as vanilla. So it was really free-flowing. But when you start cooking, you can understand that because you just throw it in and make it to your liking. All right, so we're going to blend this. It'll be nice and thick. So make sure this is on low. So you blend it until it's smooth. And so it's like that. I could probably blend a little more, but for the sake of this, we'll stop here. You want it nice and completely smooth, so I'd probably blend it for another minute or so. And maybe a few more nuts. But we would pour it right in there. You do have to set this, definitely. So all of these things solidify in the refrigerator. So you can do it in the freezer, This is something you want to do in advance, obviously. Just like baking, you got to give it time to cool and set and all that stuff. So you would just kind of give it a shake, get it nice and even. And then you put this in the freezer or your refrigerator. I like to go ahead and give it a hard freeze and then maybe put it in the refrigerator. So you can definitely make this a day or two in advance. Obviously, you have to make at least a day in advance, right? So, or earlier that day, you can put it in the freezer. You know, probably about 4 hours would be enough time for it to set. Or you can put it in your refrigerator overnight and it sets also. So it doesn't have to go in the freezer. But as you'll see, you know, and once you put it out at room temperature, it does, you know, start to, you know, loosen a lot. So you want to, you know, not put it out too far in advance. So this is it. You see how easy that was? Oh, sure. So there we go. I don't want to tilt it too much. But much easier than the cheesecake that'll kill you, right? And it tastes just as good. See, someone had a question?
Are we allowed to add fruit to that?
Yes, absolutely. And so we garnish it with a little cinnamon sprinkled on. Yeah, I'm just going to pretend this is cinnamon. So we garnish it with that. Now, Chef Madea, she put the cinnamon in a sifter and taps it over it, so it brings a nice, you know, light flavoring. And this is, we're going to pretend this is peppermint, and this is parsley. But you do that just like that. And yeah, you can definitely do strawberries on top, whatever, you know, a little lemon twist on there to make it really pretty. There's like 100 ways you can customize the cheesecake for sure. But that's pretty much it. And this was, like I said, a nice simple one, but yes, strawberry is great. Chocolate is great with strawberries on it too. So strawberries make everything taste better. So absolutely. So you guys ready for that? I didn't even taste it. You know, the cardinal rule is taste and adjust, but I just trusted the recipe. But I'm gonna give it a taste just to make sure. It's good. Okay. That's what happens when you follow the recipe. A lot of times I go off script. Oh, one other thing. See, I'm all off script. This is coconut cream. This is like whipped cream, though. You can buy this at the stores. Coconut whipped cream. Really good ingredients. Keep it frozen, and then you just dollop right there. This tastes even so much better with that on there. Now, sometimes I've added cinnamon to this and made it a cinnamon coconut whipped cream. It's really, really good. You can just eat this with strawberries and have added too. That can be a dessert by itself. Sliced strawberries and this cream is great. Again, it's coconut, which is a superfood, so it's really good for you, the healthy fats, good for the brain like avocado and things like that. So we don't have to stay away from them. And when we're going decadent, we can have decadent food too sometimes. It's not every day. I'm not going to eat this every day. But instead of feeling deprived, we can do it in a healthy way. So any other questions before we move on? Yes?
When I buy herbs, and they're $3.99, $4.99, and I buy 5 or 6, and then I put them in the refrigerator, and I forget where they are, and they're bad, and they're not so out. You know, is there some place where you can, is there some place you go to get your herbs?
So yeah, you know, I try to grow the ones I use all the time, like basil, just in a flower pot on my balcony, because I do the same thing. I'll use like a fourth of it and then forget about it, and then it goes bad. I also use these green containers. They have some that are larger that I put them in. It preserves the life of it about a week or two, so it helps keep things fresh. So that's one way I can have my herbs and things on hand without them going bad. So it off-gasses the gas that breaks food down, so it slows that process down. So I use that a lot. The only thing that I use plastic for, usually I store in plastic, but this is, you know, it's not like mixed. So this is very helpful. But I get, you know, you can buy the herbs that have the soil in it that you can just go and plant it in a flower pot yourself, like basil, they have that at the store. all the time at Whole Foods and Mom's Organic. You can do cilantro as well, things that you're going to use a lot. It's best if you can just do a little, small flower pots. But otherwise, put them in a container like that and keep some water on them, rinse them, and they'll last longer. So, all right. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all. So I'm going to go let them know it's time. I know you're like, no more questions, we're ready to eat, right? Oh, right. Shirley mentioned, yes, and Shirley's another faithful friend, follower, supporter. She's always on our Monday night wellness call. We have a Monday night wellness call from 7, supposed to be to 7:30. It always goes over. We cover different topics every week from, diets to disease prevention. It's a free call. You can just tune in. You can ask questions or even give us a topic to cover, and we'll do that. It's myself and Dr. Watkins, who is a holistic physician. He's excellent. I love working with him. And together we cover a bunch of topics, so each week it's a free service we do, again, to get people in the healthy mindset. Alicia's on the call a lot. So the number is on my website. You just scroll down to the bottom. You'll see the number with the call-in code right there. So do please join us. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, just email and we'll work it in to the rotation.
It's probably Thanksgiving tomorrow, right?
I'm sure. Right, a better Thanksgiving, something to be thankful for. Because a lot of people will start, one meal can change your cholesterol and your things and tip you over the edge to heart attack and things like that. Happens a lot around the holidays because we're just so overindulging. So you don't have to do that when you can have a really delicious dinner and let, enjoy it. But again, eat to live, not to kill yourself. So, all right. Any other questions? All right, so they're gonna start bringing out, we're gonna start with our soup, which is incredible. It's one of my favorites, a roasted creamy sweet potato soup. And then we're gonna move on with it. Now somebody's wearing my t-shirt. Where is she? My Stop Playing, Go Vegan t-shirt. Oh, of course, on cue, she goes to the bathroom. Here she is. I wanted you to demonstrate the t-shirt. Yes. Yes. Yes, if you could take it off. Or you got to come up here in the front so they could see it on the camera. Yeah. So the good news is all of these recipes are going to be in my upcoming cookbook. And the title of the cookbook, as soon as she is able to come up. Yes, is Say It Together. That's right. So that's the name of the book that I am furiously working to get out very soon because I'm excited about it and people have been asking me forever. But yeah, it'll have all these great recipes in it. Healthy recipes. It's also segmented into things that are going to help nourish the thyroid, things that are going to boost your antioxidants and immune system. And then it's got the splurge section and my family recipes. My brother, sister, mom, dad all contributed one of their favorite recipes. Like my mom's favorite one is like this beef Wellington she does, beef Wellington. And it's really good. So there's a splurge section, but it's still plant-based. But it's all about, it's different because we're talking about nourishing the body first, but also making it taste really good. So you all will know about it because you're on my e-news list, and so you'll be one of the first to know when it's out. But you can get the t-shirt now in advance. I have some with me, and so you're welcome to get that. All right, so thank you all very much. And, and for those online, we're about to sign off. You had one question?
I did.
Yes.
For Monday night. I was going to ask if you could talk a little bit about the differences in like miso and tofu, especially if you're dealing with any estrogen challenges.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I'll cover it really quick because they know, so they're coming. The difference between miso and tofu or different types of soy, basically, and estrogen. Soy does have estrogen, but it's a weak estrogen. It's a plant estrogen. So if you're trying to reduce estrogen, you reduce meat because you get real estrogen and hormones from animal products. So that would be the quickest way to reduce the estrogen. So because it's a very weak protein, actually soy estrogen is protective for cancer. I would not overdo it. If you have thyroid issues, there can be things with soy and the thyroid that kind of contraindicate each other. But generally, soy has been fine for people who are even dealing with, illnesses like fibroids that are kind of fed by estrogen, as well as cancer. Now, I do recommend natural soy like miso and tempeh that's fermented. It's easier for the body to digest as opposed to the soy protein isolate, which is a processed food. So we want to eat little to none of that. But tempeh and miso are usually the best soy products. In other countries that eat soy are generally eating like tofu. They're not eating the veggie burgers that are full of soy protein isolate. And so it's shown to be protective against cancer and not really have a negative effect on estrogen per se. So, good question. All right. Well, we're going to sign off for those online. Thank you for tuning in. And we did record this, so it'll be available for replay so you can share with people. And I'm excited to get to dinner, right? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all very much.